Everyone has a story to tell. Welcome to DingoTalk, where we explore the experiences that make us who we are. Here's your host, Carlo Guadagnino.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is DingoTalk, and as I said last week, we are staying in the PAC. This week, traveling to Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania, to talk to the longest tenured coach here in the PAC, Geno DeMarco of Geneva College. Before we get any further into that, I want to tell you where you can find us on social medias and where you can listen and watch the show. You can listen and watch the show on everywhere you get podcasts. So Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Amazon, Google. You type in Dingo Talk, you'll find me. Want to watch it? Click on YouTube. Type in Dingo Talk. Find my face. It's a big caricature of me. Receding hairline. Can't miss it. Then you go on to the social medias. TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. The only one different is Instagram. It's Dingo_talk. So we cleaned up that whole mishap from last week for those of you that stayed with us for that. But as I pointed out, we are talking with Geneva head coach Geno DeMarco of 31 years. He's going into his 32nd season this year. He's only the second coach that Geneva's had since 1976. So we're going to obviously talk to him about that. We're going to talk to him about the fact that Geneva was once an NAIA school before they got into the PAC. But we're also going to talk to Coach about the fact that he has 3 bachelor's degrees, a master's degree. He coached under both Bill Curry and Don Nehlen, one at Georgia Tech, Bill Curry, WVU, Don Nehlen. And we're going to just kind of talk to him about why, for 32 years now, he has stayed in Geneva and been at the helm of this program. We're also going to, why Division III is important. What is the recruitment tactic or tools that Geneva is looking for, people that Geneva is looking for. But that being said, it's not my job to tell Coach a story. That's for 150 some of these episodes you guys have all been along. I don't tell the story. They tell the story. So without further ado, this is Geno DeMarco. What's going on, Chuckleheads, and welcome back to Dingo Talk. I am Carlo Guadagnino, staying in the PAC. We are with the now longest tenured coach in the PAC, Geno DeMarco. Coach, thank you very much for joining us.
Well, thank you for being persistent and making me do this.
It's part of my thing. If I don't get told yes right away, we just send it out again and hope that, it's a busy time for you guys.
Well, that's why you're going to do very, very well in what you love. So persistence it's the way to succeed.
I appreciate that. The way we do this every week, Coach, is we take you all the way back to your senior year of high school. And then we bring you all the way back forward. So talking about your senior year in high school, you do end up graduating with 3 degrees from Geneva. But before that, there was a stop before you returned to Geneva. Where was that stop and why?
Well, I wanted to go somewhere where it was football, and the best football. And got recruited late by Baldwin Wallace, who had just won a national championship in Division III, and BW had actually beaten a 1AA, believe it or not. At that time, it wasn't even called 1AA, but had beaten a 1AA school that was recruiting me as a junior, and I just didn't make the grades to get into that school. So I felt like, well, I'll go to the school to beat the school that didn't want me. So I went there, and it was a great experience. Played 2 sports, was involved in everything I possibly could be on campus, and had to make a decision on what was best for me and what I believed in as a Christian, what I believed in, what I feel like led me to Geneva, and I can't describe it. It's not going to make sense to anybody, but I had everything. And at that time, Coach Tressel he was an amazing guy, and anybody that ever played for Coach Tressel will tell you that. They had an amazing program, very close friends I still keep in touch with, but it was more about what was being taught in the classroom. So I had to move on from that.
So you come home and
which I said I would never do, by the way.
Well, and that's the thing. So you grew up very close to Geneva, and I listened to a couple other interviews you did, and that was something as a senior, you were saying, nope, Geneva's out, never going to happen. And then
Right.
a very long family line of going to Geneva.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Never say never. I'm telling you. So I was like, nah, I wasn't. There's no way I was going to end up in Geneva. And I find myself back there and going to Geneva. I've had 10 family members attend Geneva. I've had every one of my daughters. I got 4 daughters, and they married a Geneva football player or coach. So if that's the only reason why I was supposed to come to Geneva and be here for over 3.5, 4 decades, whatever it's been, uh, we'll call that a win. And you know,
Well, and your time at Geneva, you were one heck of an athlete, and we will get into the academic side of that because you walk away from Geneva with 3 degrees, so you clearly were focused in the classroom as well. But
yeah,
the
which I
first
wasn't.
thing,
Which I was exactly the opposite in high school. Like I'm telling you, any high school student right now who's viewing this, they have a higher GPA or SAT than what I did at New Brighton High School in 1978.
now
Guarantee it.
you got into school, why the change? Why the focus on the academics?
I think realistically, and that's the reason I'm passionate about Geneva College, is because there were professors, and there are professors at Geneva that valued me as, I don't want to get all weird about this, but as a person, and they valued the, how, I don't even want to say, uh, potential that was never looked at in high school because we were having too good of a time and really didn't care about anything else but having a good time and playing football.
Well, and you know that academic focus led you to become the first Golden Tornado of the academic NAIA Academic All-American team.
Yeah, I wouldn't tout that as something that would be like, that's not special. I think what happened was maybe our coach was on the committee. They needed somebody to fill out the thing, and I just fit the bill, and it just happened. So, yeah, it's, timing.
So not only were you a linebacker for the Golden Tornadoes, you also were a baseball player. And if the stats are right, your junior year you batted over 400.
Oh yeah, I hit 407, made all conference. That and I had a major injury to my shoulder, which caused me, this is crazy, to not be able to swing a bat again, but able to go play linebacker and finish my career. It's hard to describe. But the baseball guys, like, they don't want to recognize the fact that a football guy hit over 400 in college. We had a heck of a baseball team.
They just don't want to. They don't want to say that the guy that was playing in the fall could also do it in the spring.
Well, there's a reason for that, is because my high school coach, Greg Fazio, who coached Terry Francona, who's the manager for the for whatever they're called, the Cleveland people, the Guardians. He told me when I was a sophomore, Terry was a senior. He told me to sell my glove, that I really didn't need it, and because I was used as a pinch runner and as a DH. And then when I got this all conference award in baseball, it was as a DH. So when I called Coach Fazio and said, "Hey, I just got all conference in baseball. There you go." He goes, "Yeah, what position did you play?" I said, "I played DH." He said, "I told you never needed your glove."
So he wasn't wrong, but it was still the.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was the pitch runner for Terry Francona. Yeah, which nobody's going to ever believe. Oh, he's tremendous. He really is. He's tremendous.
So when you graduate with, and why 3 degrees? Because it was psychology.
Right. The 3 degrees, because once somebody kind of told me that this was a competitive thing, I wanted to be one of the only athletes to graduate from Geneva that played 2 sports, that got some sort of recognition, and had 3 degrees. I just, yeah, it became something of passion. The psychology thing's a passion. Business, I still teach in a business department. And then there was this invention back then called the personal computer. And I thought maybe I should get a degree in info systems. So I did. And wouldn't you know it, that the federal government offers me a job. And it was one of those federal government jobs that has like three letters.
Okay. Yeah, we don't have
Yeah.
to go any further. I don't need them calling me.
Well, no. I'll just tell you what happened. I told them no after they have spent, so much money, kind of talking to everybody about them. And I passed the lie detector test. I just want that to know. I do have that paper that I show parents, recruits. So I told them no, I couldn't do it. I was intimidated by the traffic in DC, and they were what the federal government was going to pay me was it was ludicrous. So what did I do? I took a graduate assistantship at Georgia Tech. The traffic in Atlanta. Tech. Yeah, the traffic in Atlanta.
For Coach Curry.
Yeah, the traffic in Atlanta was worse than the traffic in DC, and I made literally a third, if not a quarter, of what I would have made for the federal government. And I went to Georgia Tech because I was going to get an MBA, because that was the big deal. I was going to be the first graduate assistant to get an MBA. So I signed up for MBA classes that second semester or whatever it was, third quarter or whatever, and I go up there to the registrar. This is after passing calculus now with a B at Georgia Tech. That's pretty impressive. They tell me we don't offer an MBA. We do a joint program with Georgia State across town, and you'd have to go there so I had to go to talk to Coach Curry again. And I said, I got to get this degree. I got to get this MBA thing. And the way everything worked out, thank the Lord that one guy was passing another guy in Nashville at the convention. And, there was a coach from Memphis that was talking to the coach from Georgia Tech, who was talking to Coach Nehlen. And before you know it, it was like crypto, man. I was in demand for that like short time, and made me feel like a pretty big deal. And Coach Nehlen did it. He allowed me to coach a position on defense in spring ball. And then the next year I coached another position on defense. And I'll tell you this, that while I was in West Virginia, I coached a kid that actually played in the Super Bowl. So, yeah, that's pretty cool.
Who was that?
David Grant. And David Grant went in when a guy named Tim Krumrie from the Bengals broke his leg in a Super Bowl way back when, and he went in. Now, I will tell you this. If I'm not coaching David Grant is still going to be playing in the Super Bowl regardless. So I had nothing to do with it at all. But I did have my own room, and I did have my own position, and that felt pretty good.
Now, does the time at Georgia Tech, before we get into the time at WVU, does the time at Georgia Tech influence you as a head coach? And is it one of the reasons that we still see a very similar offense to what Georgia Tech and Navy run?
Yes and no. And here's how it happened. At Georgia Tech, I learned a lot about the psychology of coaching from Coach Curry, a lot of it. I learned a lot of defense from Coach Don Lindsay, who was an incredible defensive coordinator, brilliant man. But the triple option really came about because of one of our other GAs, Mike Seawalk, who had been with Coach Johnson for 25 years, followed him everywhere. Mike's a brilliant guy. Mike was the reason why I got a B in calculus at Georgia Tech. So we all lived in the same, at that time, condo or whatever it was. I don't know. And so when we decided that we needed to go to something really different, because as a program, we needed to do that, I called Mike, and he was at Tech at that time, the offensive line coach, and Paul Johnson was, competing with Georgia and competing with all the big dogs by running this offense. And I said, I'm coming down. And I went down there every year, and I can't thank Mike enough. So that's the tie-in. But at the time when I was at Georgia Tech, we were running I formation and pro-style offense. And defensively, we were running a multiple scheme that It's some great stuff. Great stuff.
And then what changes from that offense and defensive scheme to when you get to WVU?
Well, WVU, everything that we did was Michigan because Coach Nehlen was the OC at Michigan. So, I mean, it was almost to the point where, I had a friend at that time that was a GA at Michigan, and we would talk, and the same terminology that we used on defense was being used at Michigan. Same color scheme, the same idea. And Coach Nehlen is just, I mean, one of the, these two guys are in the Hall of Fame. They're in the Hall of Fame. But Coach Nehlen allowed me to coach. And what he did is he gave me credibility because of the year I'd spent at Georgia Tech. And I everything I could possibly do football wise at WVU and at Georgia Tech, I did, because I felt like it was going to be a blueprint for the rest of the coaching profession.
Now, at the end of your time at WVU, you returned to Geneva, but you're not paid coach, right? You're a volunteer. You're an assistant.
Yeah. So what happens is this: I get, I don't want to go into all these details, but it's just crazy how it worked out. That at that time, Coach Nehlen was actually looked at as a finalist for the Ohio State job, and that ended up going to John Cooper. And if that happens, there may be a chance that I stay at WVU because they may give it to the DC, who Denny Brown was just, again, another incredible mind. That stuff didn't happen. So coming out, Coach Nehlen says, I get my MBA, and he was really adamant because he wanted me to get that. It had been the first GA he's had to get an MBA. So I got that, and he says, well, listen, there's three jobs that are open right now that I can help you with. One is at San Francisco State. Now that was a tough one because I just couldn't see myself in California. All right. Mm-hmm. Good decision. I didn't go there. They dropped football. The second one was at Baldwin High School as a head coach. Number one, it wasn't ready to be a head coach. Number two, they hired the greatest head coach in Beaver County at that time. All right. Who was at Aliquippa, and he went to Baldwin, and he just did what he did at Baldwin that he did at Aliquippa. He really did. Yep. And then the third one, which is ironic, was a defensive position, coordinator's position at Carnegie Mellon, because guess who came down every year to talk football with us about defense? Coach Lackner and the defensive staff at Carnegie Mellon. So I go up there and I knock on Rich's door. I said, hey, you got a job open? He said, I'd love to hire you. And that's just Rich being nice. He said, but I got a guy that's been a volunteer for like 3 years, Terry Bodner. So he hires Terry, and Terry's with him up until 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. So that's why the closeness there. But so I checked all those off, and then finally I got a hold of somebody that interviewed me. It was a football guy from Cardinal Mooney High School, and he's a big football guy. He liked the fact my resume because I had an MBA, so I got into pharmaceutical sales.
Wow.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about that was the territory that I got allowed me to be a volunteer at Geneva, and while I was this pharmaceutical guy in these territories, I was turning down promotions, which wasn't making Upjohn happy. Mm-hmm. But gave me my own recruiting territory, and Coach Sullivan allowed me to run the defense at that time. And it was my way of giving back to an alma mater that helped change my life because of, being the Christian school that it is, giving me the parameters that I needed to have as a young man, and having faculty that would absolutely speak life into me rather than you're going to be a bum like the rest of everybody. Mm-hmm. That was told to me by my junior high guidance counselor, but he really wasn't off the mark because at that time he should have told me that. So, that's how I ended up at Geneva. And Coach Sullivan Uh, just an incredible man. Um, you know, legend in high school football. Uh, I work for him, and he ends up getting sick, and tells the president that he'd like to still stay with the football program, and then they come and approach me. Yep.
And that's how it all starts.
Well, yeah, but there were 4 people who believed that I could do the job. I was not one of them, by the way. My wife,
Coach Sullivan,
Coach Sullivan, the president, Jerry Slocum, the athletic director. Of course, I can't count my dad because he's biased. I mean, and my wife. So my wife forgets that the Rocky speech that she gave me back then, So we had to take the big pay cut because at that time, if you were in pharmaceuticals, at that time you were making pretty good money, and you're going to find out through like interviewing small college coaches that these guys really aren't doing it for the money. They're doing it because they're passionate and they love working with young men, and they're competitive. I mean, that's what you're going to find out.
Now,
so that's how.
I guess my biggest question for you before we get into the PAC, because that's 2010 and on, the NAIA, the biggest difference, because you and that team up north were both a part of a completely different entity of college football, and now you're both in the PAC. What was the difference between the NAIA and Division III minus the scholarships? Because I know that you can give scholarships, obviously, in the NAIA field.
I think in the NAIA, you felt as a coach you could control your roster more because of the availability of funds to attract the needs that you have in your program and be able to manage that roster accordingly. Whereas in Division III, and at Geneva, I do know the way it works at other places, but at our place, I have no bearing at all on what a young man's financial aid package is going to be. So that's the biggest difference. And that's why we went to the triple option. Well, at first we went with, we were running the air raid offense.
Okay.
And we were going 100 miles an hour, and we were doing very, very well with it. But the more we got into the D3 thing, I just didn't see us being able to beat the Division II schools on linemen that were big enough to run that sort of offense. So we had to go with short, squatty body types up front because those were the kinds of kids that we were getting. And they're tenacious and they love ball. And I want to do something really obscure that drives defensive coordinators crazy, because the triple was something we faced 2 or 3 times and hated defending it. So that's why we put that in.
Well, and we've had previous PAC coaches on, and we talked about some of the differences that you see in the conference. And your program comes up every time because there's a real hidden ball trick that can come with that triple option. Because if you guys are moving the ball and getting downfield and getting into that second level, you might not see the ball for 12, 14, 16 minutes down the line with the way that offense can go. The decision to join the PAC.
Well, I was the athletic director at the time. And the reason that we went to the PAC is because we had an invitation from the conference. And at that time, there was a 4-year, almost a 5-year wait. And there were no football playing schools in Northeast Pennsylvania, with Westminster going to, the GLIAC at first. And if the GLIAC had actually kept their promise to Westminster about separating it into a public and private league, who knows? We may be in a different thing, but they didn't keep the promise. And, Westminster ends up making a division, this decision to go D3. So we got all these schools that we used to play back when I played, and they're right road, they're down 79, guys compete against each other in high school. Yeah.
Now, you let's talk about that rivalry with the team up north, because I know it's a very unique. Ohio State has a team up north, and Geneva has a team up north. What is it about the rivalry between you and Westminster, or Geneva and Westminster?
The irony of the whole rivalry is this: when I was working for Upjohn, and I was approached to put my name in to be considered to be the head coach, I immediately talked to my district manager, who happens to be in the Geneva Athletic Hall of Fame, and had a tryout with the Steelers. So he says, well, if you're going to do this, let's go find somebody that knows how to put a program together, and let's go find the best person around, period. Well, at that time, Joe Fusco had just led Westminster 5 national championships. So I went to Coach Fusco's office. He had recruited me when I was a junior, and it didn't work out. I went to BW, blah, blah, blah. But so many friends went there. My cousin went there. He gives me what I got to do to win at Geneva. Mm-hmm. I keep those notes, and they're still in my desk. And I get hired. And one of the biggest reasons I wanted to take the job is, we beat them. We beat them in 1987. The second time we played them in the playoffs. I was not part of that staff. I had to take football off that year because of my job, but I was there. But we went back to being the same old Geneva, getting beat year in, year on out. And that was like the major thing for me was, if we can just compete and mm-hmm. beat the team north, then we're going to be pretty good, because they were the best. And if you look at the run we had, I'll just say they've beaten us some consecutive times here in the last 5-6 years. That we gotta make it. We have to make it a rivalry again.
Okay,
but that's the story. And after Coach Fusco, Coach Nicholson was there, mm-hmm. and we would talk just like as coaches in a profession. I mean, we would exchange ideas, everything else. I mean, he's not asking me for my game plan, and I do the same with Coach Sirianni. I do the same at W&J. I do the same thing with Scott up at Westminster. It's just we're all in this profession, mm-hmm. and it's a profession where you get ideas from people, and it's coaching, and there isn't one place that's perfect. So every place has a little adversity you got to overcome. There's no perfect job out there.
That's true. That's very true. When you're talking to a recruit, what are you looking for in that student athlete?
I want to see that he understands what he's signing up for, what he's going to get himself into. Okay. So we're brutally as transparent as we can be. I can't put on a dog and pony show and be somebody that we're not. So we've gone back to teaching. This is who we are. We want to be a physical football team, and we do things differently. And you're going to hear the word no from me a lot. And it's not something that 18-year-olds jump up and down because they can't go to the frat house or they can't sleep, at the dorm with their girlfriend. And yeah, is it used against us in recruiting? Absolutely. But the kids that we get are the kids that understand what it takes. And that's why we've stayed with this kind of offense. And mm-hmm. that's why why to be able to get back to the top of the league, we've got to get back to playing defense like we did for so many years. And that's my responsibility of making that happen. And there were some tough changes we had to make this past offseason.
And then why Geneva? What is it about Geneva? Because Geneva's a different place for those that don't know, who have never been to Beaver Falls, where you guys are. Because it's not something that you would expect as you're driving through, and then all of a sudden, bam! There's you. You kind of come right out to it, depending on which way you're traveling from the city.
Yeah, it's Georgia Tech was right downtown Atlanta. If you were in the middle of campus at Georgia Tech, you didn't know that you were in middle of downtown Atlanta. Geneva College sets up on a place in Beaver Falls called College Hill. And I didn't know that there was another part to the campus when I was a high school student at New Brighton, because I knew about it is we had a football field and we played Beaver Falls there, and it was a stadium that was packed. But Geneva to me is I believe in the mission of the college. I absolutely believe that our school will prepare its students for what we think is their vocational calling. And, so I'm looking and trying to sell that to an 18-year-old kid. They don't get that. We sign more parents. I would probably lead D3 in parent signings than anybody else.
But it's hard to get that same message across when you're you're talking to an 18-year-old kid who's not thinking of 4 years down the road. They're thinking of tomorrow.
Right now. Yeah, you know why? Because that's what I did at 18. So I understand. I get it. I mean, I remember those thought processes because I wasn't going to get old. Football wasn't going to end.
I think we all at one time.
4 years. I mean, 4 years. 4 years is a long time, man. I mean, when you're 18, 4 years is, heck, what am I thinking about 5 years down the road? I mean, when I was 17, 18, all I was thinking about was, can I get my 8-track player hot wired into the electronic system of my Dodge Charger so I could go around listening to Leonard Skinner?
And I think most people's priorities are still the same. Can I make sure that the Bluetooth hooks up to my phone so that I can listen to music with my friends?
That's it. I mean, but so we're looking for. I don't want to say we're looking for a tougher kid. That's going to demean every other program. I mean, come on. Every coach says that. But I want to make sure that these young men understand what they're in for when they come to our place. And it really helps. It does. And we're in the process of rebuilding.
Well, and I think there's not a huge, so I've interviewed PAC coaches, I've interviewed OAC coaches. And I think what the OAC coaches have said about the conference is also, from my experience watching PAC games for the past 11 years, 13 years, sorry. There is no off day in either conference. You can't go into a Saturday and go, oh, I'm playing Bethany or I'm playing so-and-so. And they didn't have that great of a week last week. Well, they might have a great week this week, and you can't go in anywhere thinking that that's the mentality. Do you feel the same way?
Oh, you know what? I'd rather, and every coach will say this, they want to see wins. I think down deep, you want to play the best competition and be the best you can be against that competition. So when you get Carnegie Mellon, you get Case Western, you get the guys up north, you get the guys over the Grovers, you get Mikey down at W&J, you got, the young guy that's doing a great job at St. Vincent, you got the young guy down at Bethany, you get another young guy that came back to Allegheny. I'm going to have to hit all of them because if I leave somebody out, I'll be on the page. And, what they're doing at Waynesburg, I mean, here's what I need to say, and I hope it gets taken in the right way. Football is a huge thing in the PAC. Just football is a huge thing in the OAC. Football is a big, big thing in the PAC, and it's become that. And colleges in the PAC have seen it. They're investing in it.
And I mean, it's all around the conference. You're right. It's all around their conference as well. As I keep talking to these coaches, there's different expansion projects, and it seems to be Division III is now focusing in on the athletics, which is, as previous coaches have said, you go to D3 to get the education and have the opportunity to participate in that sport that you're very passionate about. Coach, here comes a couple curveball questions. We do this towards the end of every episode. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
If I could live anywhere in the world, it'd be the place that I looked out of my window when I was a kid, and I looked over 100 acres. My grandpa owned the property, and said, if I can live up there, then how in my mind would make it. So I'm living here now, and I can't imagine living anywhere else. My wife's in the other room. She's hearing this, and she's got 3 or 4 other places on her mind. But I would say here.
Yeah. What is the most important lesson that you've learned thus far in your career?
Oh, in coaching, the most important lesson that I learned is that there's going to be another lesson to be learned. You never stop learning. And the day as coaches or as anything, is the day we think we know it all, is the day you lose your players. I mean, it's just,
If you weren't coaching,
if I wasn't coaching, what would I be doing? I would be a stunt double for Uncle Festus and the Addams Family.
Little self-deprecating humor from you, Coach. I wasn't expecting that. Okay. I can see that.
I'd probably be in men's. I honestly would probably be in men's ministry at a church, because I don't know. It's a calling. It's a passion. Don't put me with teenagers though. Or try to watch the young kids. Yeah.
Be up a little bit, out away from all those the younger people. Just, I understand it's a different world now. It is a different world when you step outside the doors. The best compliment you've ever received?
When my wife tells me she loves me.
Insult you've ever received?
You cut out on me there, or maybe it's a question that I don't want to answer. Good, whatever it is, try it again.
The best insult you've ever received?
Well, when you walk out and you've lost some games in a row, I mean, and you hear your last name being shouted from the home stands, and after that is something, there's a derogatory comment about me and my last name, and then a derogatory comment. I mean, I laughed. I really did. I thought that was the greatest insult, because it was, yeah.
It's simple and to the point.
Oh, it's simple to the point. I mean, and at that point, like, the band wasn't playing, and yeah, it was loud. It was proud, and it was directed right at me. So I'm like, I laughed because I had an idea of who was saying it, but
that's even better, because you're like, I think I know who you were. Well, we might have to have a conversation later.
Yeah, that's the darkness of my soul coming out. Yeah, absolutely.
Coach, what do you? And first, before I ask this question, congratulations earlier this year being named to the College Football Hall of Fame. I noticed you brought up earlier the 2 other names that you were associated with that were Hall of Fame coaches. You're now in that boat. What?
It's different Hall of Fame, though.
Brought you to the Hall of Fame, to this Hall of Fame?
Yeah, this is the National Christian College, and those guys are in the I think the American Football Coaches Hall of Fame. Yeah. So this one means something. Oh boy, we're done. This one means something because we belong to 2 organizations, and when you play against schools that are like-minded as far as their mission, and let's call it what it is. There is no place in anywhere where there's a level playing field. I don't care if we talk about business. I don't talk if we talk about quality of education. I don't care if we talk about places to live, or I don't care if we talk about divisions of football.
Mm-hmm.
There is no place that there's a level playing field. And it's really just part of who we are as Americans. You got to do what the best that you can do and take calculated risks to be able to reap the windfall from it. But in the organization that that I just got named to the Hall of Fame, it means something because football was something that just came on board with them, and the NCCs have embraced it. The experiences our kids have had at the Victory Bowl, the quality of competition that we played. I mean, we're playing Division II schools,
Mm-hmm.
and the young men get a great experience from it. So I'm very humbled by it because they put that out there in the media, and they put that stuff out there. And now I got to live up to that reputation, which if you spent an hour with me, you'd be like, this guy really?
Well, I've spent 40 minutes with you. I'm thinking Hall of Fame. You're quick. You're not. I was expecting a little pushback. Every time I saw you on the sideline, there's a little bit more gruff, little agitated sometimes. You're very personable.
Sometimes, yeah. I have never gotten a 15-yard penalty from the referee in my entire coaching career. That's true. That's a fact. I don't know if you can hear this or not, but the only time our sideline did get one was when I brought, believe it or not, our team chaplain to the game who played in the NFL, and he made comments out to the line judge about holding. And we're out in the state of Indiana at another Christian school, and we get flagged. And I went over to tell the referee, congratulations, you're the first one that would ever flag the director of the FCA in the Mideast. There he is right over there. That's who you turn the flag on. So.
Well, Coach, I've come to my last question, and this one, it's a little confusing, so I'm going to try and word it better.
I know what it is. What is the meaning of life?
No, I don't want to go down that road. I don't think I'm ready for the answer. Question for you is, was there a question that you were expecting me to ask you coming into today? And if so, how would you have answered it?
You're going to ask me, why don't you're going to say, Coach, I'm looking at you. I want to know what happened to your eyebrows. And then I would have had to tell you that it's part of having alopecia. And you know what? It is what it is. I mean, yeah, I really thought maybe you were going to ask me about that.
Honestly, I didn't even notice. I'm going to be completely honest. I didn't notice. Well, Coach, we've come to the end. I want to say thank you very much for sitting down and joining us. Best of luck this upcoming season to you. You might see us in the stands. We're making our way around the PAC and the OAC.
In the stands, then maybe you can figure out, who that person is.
Listening for them.
I'm telling you. Yeah. Hey, let me know if you do show up somewhere, I don't know. We'll do something like, I don't know, buy you a Diet Coke or something.
Yeah, we'll get a sandwich or something.
Yeah. That's great. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Coach. For those of you staying around, we're heading to the editorial with Serenity Brown. This has been Geneva head football coach Geno DeMarco. We will be back here in a few short minutes.
Welcome back, Chuckleheads. I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is the editorial with Serenity Brown. That's Serenity Brown right there. Geno DeMarco. Well, before we get into Geno, for those of you that are stuck with us, make sure that you check out all of our social medias, which are TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. The only difference is on Instagram, it's Dingo_talk. If you're listening on Spotify, make sure you hit the follow button. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss anything like that. Another PAC school. It's ironic from my point of view because I call games and watch these guys coach for 6 years. It's kind of the conference that I came to love Division III sports in. So it's just interesting that the coaches that we've had on thus far and the coaches that we're going to have in the future from the PAC. We're very appreciative to the coaches that have responded to us, both saying they want to be a part of the show or not. We just appreciate the response. So with that being said.
All right, my first thing. This is not on our end, but I am going to say it. It absolutely drives me nuts when people film from their phone. And I understand completely, not everybody has access to certain materials and devices or anything like that. But editing visually, it doesn't
It
look,
throws off the skew.
it doesn't look clean. It just...
And that's something maybe in the future when I send the emails out, just reminding people, hey.
Yeah.
And again, it's nothing against Coach DeMarco.
No,
we understand
it's not the first person it's happened
No.
with. I'm honestly at least thankful. Like, his lighting was good. We can see him the whole time. So
volume was
the
great.
volume was really good on his end, which leads me into my next thing. Our audio. This one was probably, I think, the worst one that we've had.
And I believe that problem has been fixed for future episodes.
Yes.
This was when it was
a
recorded.
pre-record. Yep.
We were still having those technical difficulties, so I'm hoping that I have figured out
Yeah.
that
And
issue.
then my last point would just be the very end of the show when you come send it to us. It was a little rough, a little rocky. You guys were just kind of like talking over each other, and I don't think he was sure if he was supposed to log off or if he was supposed to stay there while you sent it off. So it just kind of wasn't the smoothest thing ever. But
I learned this week at work. Everything is a learning experience. So that's all I'm going to say on that note. Yeah, I mean, one, getting to talk to somebody of the caliber of human being that Geno is, and we've heard it from other coaches. I've heard it from coaches in the other interviews that we are going to release here in the coming weeks. I mean, 2 weeks from now, we're going to talk to Mike Sirianni and the things that he has to say about Geno. Next week, we're talking to Carnegie Mellon's Ryan Larson. He talks about what Geno is to the conference, and 31 years of being at the helm, and he made sure to, for those of you that heard him, I compared it to the Pittsburgh Steelers, only having 3 coaches over a stretch of time, and apparently, that was a mistake. Geneva is better than that because they only have had 2 coaches in that same amount of time. So I'm just very thankful to get to talk to a guy like Geno, and Beaver Falls. Don't be surprised. That might be a trip for us. There's a couple games that I'd like to, especially I think Westminster. We decided we're gonna. October 7th, that's a pretty big date. I have it circled on the calendar. I'm pretty excited. And Geneva and Westminster, we might get 2 Westminster games this year because Geneva versus that team up north and the way that rivalry seems to be. I'm not sure yet. We haven't really fine-tuned that schedule. On the other side of that, thanks. So we're gonna show Miss Brown's football knowledge. Not really. We're just gonna ask her about movies. First, we're gonna have her rank her top 5 football movies that she's seen, and then I'm gonna pick 3 movies off of this list, and you guys at home are gonna vote for which one she should watch next. So, for you, what are the top 5 football movies that you have seen? There's only 5.
I think there is only 5. The Blind Side.
Do you need this?
Yeah, I actually think I do.
Okay.
I see The Blind Side, Friday Night Lights.
Is this in order? This is how you. No,
No, I don't have an order. Just telling you the ones I know. Well, Blind Side, Friday Night Lights, Remember the Titans, Varsity Blues, and Longest Yard.
So before we go any further with this conversation, I want to point out I have never been more proud in my life than Varsity Blues being on that list. That's first and foremost.
It's been a while.
Little disappointed that you obviously picked the Adam Sandler Longest Yard, not the original one.
Yes.
I get it.
Listen.
Some of us are old and some of us aren't. I understand. My hairline tells you I'm getting there. There's gray in the beard. I'm finding gray hairs now all the time. So I get it. The 3 movies that we are going to pick. I'm not even going to talk about the other 3. The other 3 they're good movies, but they're when it comes to the. I mean, remember the Titans. It's Denzel being Denzel at his best. Friday Night Lights is a great movie, but those are the ones that are based off, and The Blind Side. Those are the 3 that are based off of like, oh, that shit really happened, and not we created this like Paul Crew shaving points and ended up in jail, and then being told to shave points but won't do it. So like, the 3 are going to be Any Given Sunday, The Express, and The Replacements. And I don't know why I kept looking at her, because this is for you guys to decide. So the 3 movies again are The Replacements, Any Given Sunday, and The Express. Whichever one of those 3 you think Serenity Brown should watch, we will hopefully get her to watch that before the next episode. And we're gonna go.
Find it for free.
We're gonna go through. Yeah, I mean, we ain't got no money. Let's see. So we did the social medias. We talked about the show. Got your football stuff out of the way. Did you have anything good to eat in the last week? Anything like
Food?
yeah, food,
Sustenance.
sustenance?
That was my answer.
Okay, I just figured I'd ask. Nothing.
To be honest, I can't remember half of the things that I've eaten this week.
And that leads us to our next topic. Make sure you get tested for early onset Alzheimer's and dementia, because you don't want to end up not being able to remember what you can eat or what you've eaten in the last 48 hours, 72 hours. But maybe my brain's weird and I just remember the food that I eat. But we'll try to be better for next week, right?
Popcorn chicken today.
They did have popcorn chicken today. Thank you guys for sticking around with us. If you feel so inclined, please go to the GoFundMe page and drop us a couple dollars. Other than that, thank you for continuing to support. And as we said, thank you to all the coaches, both from the OAC, the PAC, and the upcoming conferences that we've been interviewing throughout this process. So, you got anything else? All right, Chuckleheads. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Dingo Talk. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. For more info and to contact the show, you can find us on Twitter @DingoTalk.